Ever wondered who was King Xerxes and why he is important in history? King Xerxes, a name synonymous with power and wealth, was the ruler of the Persian Empire, a vast domain that encompassed the region of Israel among others. His reign was marked by grandeur and opulence, and he is famously known for his marriage to the beautiful Queen Esther, a story that has been told and retold in biblical history. But beyond these palace walls, King Xerxes was a man of ambition, with his eyes set on expanding his empire. This led him to stage an unsuccessful invasion of Greece, a military campaign that, while initially promising, ended in disaster. Despite this setback, King Xerxes remains a significant figure in history, embodying the might and grandeur of the Persian Empire. Now let's delve into the early years of his reign and his grandeur. King Xerxes, immensely wealthy and powerful, had a grand start to his reign. Just picture it, in the third year of his rule, he decided to throw a party unlike any other. A grand feast that lasted not one, not two, but a jaw-dropping 6 months. This was no ordinary gathering. The guest list included the creme de la creme of his empire, all the nobles and military leaders, all gathered in his capital city. It was a spectacle of splendor, a showcase of the vast riches of his empire, and perhaps, just perhaps, it was here that Xerxes began to prepare for his ambitious invasion of Greece. As the grand feast came to a close, Xerxes, not one to do things by halves, hosted a 7-day banquet for all the citizens of the capital. And on the final day, in a moment of inebriation, he called for his wife, Queen Vashti, to display her beauty to his subjects. But Vashti refused. This greatly angered the king, resulting in Vashti's deposition as queen and banishment from his presence. With the grand feast now a thing of the past, Xerxes set his sights on Greece. His army was vast, a formidable force. But the Greek soldiers, they were defending their homeland. They were well-trained, battle-hardened, and they knew the terrain like the back of their hands. The invasion began favorably for Xerxes, but it wasn't to last. The Greeks, leveraging their knowledge of the terrain, strategically positioned themselves. This led to decisive victories over the Persian army. Xerxes, once a king celebrating his wealth and power, now found himself suffering a significant defeat. With a significant defeat under his belt, Xerxes returned home and began searching for a new queen. But that, dear listeners, is a story for another time. In search of a new queen, Xerxes found Esther. After the failed invasion of Greece, Xerxes sought solace in his personal life. He initiated an empire-wide search for a new queen to replace Vashti. The most beautiful young women from all corners of the empire were selected and then brought to the palace. Over the course of a year, these women underwent rigorous beauty treatments. They were pampered and prepped to perfection, all in anticipation of the moment they would be presented to the king. Out of all these women, one stood out from the rest: Esther. Esther, a young Jewish woman, was exceptionally beautiful and found favor in the eyes of the king. She was chosen to become the new queen, replacing Vashti. The decision was celebrated with a grand feast marking a new chapter in the life of Xerxes and the Persian Empire. Meanwhile, a sinister plot was brewing in the royal court. Two of the king's officials, disgruntled and seeking power, conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. However, their plot was overheard by a man named Mordecai, who was a relative and a guardian of Esther. Mordecai acted swiftly, reporting the conspiracy to the king. The two officials were tried and executed, and the incident was carefully recorded in the royal records. Despite the close shave with death, Xerxes continued to rule with an iron fist, and his reign saw the rise of a new power player in the court. His name was Haman, a prince who would play a crucial role in the future events of the empire. Xerxes, perhaps in a bid to consolidate his power following the assassination attempt, appointed Haman to a high position in the court. Little did he know that this decision would lead to a series of events that would test his reign, his queen, and the fate of an entire people. With Mordecai's life-saving act recorded in royal records, Xerxes appointed Haman to a high court position. And so, the stage was set for a dramatic turn of events in the life of King Xerxes and his queen, Esther. Haman, now in a high court position, had ill intentions towards the Jews. This prince, blinded by his own ambition, saw the Jews as a threat and decided to eliminate them. Haman, with his silver-tongued persuasion, convinced King Xerxes that these people were troublesome and received the king's approval for their extermination. A decree was issued, spelling doom for the Jews within the empire. Meanwhile, a brave woman decided to risk it all to save her people. Queen Esther, who herself was a Jew, knew the danger of her actions but was ready to face the consequences. In an act of sheer courage, she entered the king's presence uninvited, a crime punishable by death. But instead of reacting in anger, King Xerxes extended his golden scepter to her, sparing her life and showing her mercy. Queen Esther, seizing the moment, invited the king and Haman to a banquet. The king, intrigued by this unexpected invitation, agreed. At the banquet, Queen Esther extended another invitation for them to join her for another banquet the next day. King Xerxes, intrigued by the queen's mysterious behavior, accepted. That same night, a bout of insomnia led King Xerxes to peruse the royal records. He stumbled upon an unfulfilled debt. Mordecai, the man who had revealed a plot against his life, had never been rewarded. The next morning, King Xerxes, in conversation with Haman, ordered that Mordecai be honored publicly. Haman, who had planned to hang Mordecai, was forced to parade him through the city as a hero. The stage was set for a dramatic turn of events. Unbeknownst to King Xerxes and Haman, Queen Esther was ready to reveal her true identity and the sinister plot against her people. Unaware of the upcoming revelations, Xerxes and Haman attended Esther's banquet. Little did they know, this banquet would change the course of their lives and the future of an entire people. At the banquet, Esther revealed her Jewish identity and Haman's conspiracy. The course of history was about to take a dramatic turn. As the banquet drew to a close, Queen Esther, with a courage that belied her delicate stature, disclosed her Jewish heritage to King Xerxes, a fact she had kept hidden until now. More than that, she revealed the dark plot hatched by Haman to exterminate her people. A wave of shock washed over the king's face. His trusted advisor had been plotting not only against his beloved queen, but an entire people within his empire. The reality of this betrayal struck Xerxes with the force of a warhammer. Meanwhile, in the silent hours of the previous night, the king had found himself unable to sleep. To pass the time, he had ordered the royal records to be read to him. And there, he discovered an old, unattended entry. Mordecai, the same man Haman held in contempt, had once foiled a conspiracy against the king's life. Yet this heroic act had gone unrewarded. The next morning, still reeling from the revelation, Xerxes consulted Haman. Unaware of the king's newfound knowledge, Haman suggested a grand honor for the person the king wished to reward. To Haman's utter dismay, this honor was bestowed not on him, but on Mordecai. Haman was ordered to lead Mordecai through the city streets, proclaiming his deeds for all to hear. The tables had turned dramatically. At Esther's second banquet, Xerxes, inflamed with wrath against Haman, ordered his execution. In an ironic twist of fate, Haman was hanged on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. In the aftermath, Xerxes bestowed upon Mordecai and Esther the authority to reverse Haman's decree. The Jews, once marked for extermination, were saved. A villain had fallen, a heroine had risen, and a king's reign had been forever marked by this profound series of events. King Xerxes' reign was marked by power, grandeur, and significant events that shaped the course of history. Years later, Xerxes was assassinated, but his legacy lived on. King Xerxes, the ruler of the Persian Empire, was a figure of immense power and wealth. His reign, marked by grandeur and pivotal historical events, spanned a vast empire. While his attempt to invade Greece ended in failure, his influence on his own empire was significant. His marriage to Queen Esther, a young woman of extraordinary beauty and courage, brought about a turning point in the fate of the Jewish people within his realm. Esther's brave intervention not only saved her people from extermination, but also led to the downfall of Haman, a prince with a malicious plot. Following Xerxes' assassination, his son Artaxerxes ascended the throne. Continuing his father's legacy, Artaxerxes allowed the reconstruction of the temple and walls of Jerusalem, further impacting the course of history. Thus, King Xerxes' reign, filled with power, grandeur, and crucial historical events, has left an indelible mark on history.